Okay, let's have a fourth attempt at making this intro to this video. The first 3 times I've not used my webcam much for a bit, and there's this right light setting that I think's the problem. It seems to be doing nothing other than to give me the wrong light. So let's see if this one comes out any better. This is going to be a response question. You're going to groan here. You're going to say, Jim, you're so out of fashion here. You might as well have come on camera wearing your drain pipes and your dealy boppers, because I'm responding to one of these 5 questions for atheists. I know we did all this years back, didn't we? We shouldn't still be doing this kind of stuff. But 2 of the 5 questions I found really interesting and I want to address. I'm going to answer all 5 of the questions. I'll gloss over the other 3 and get to the 2 questions 3 and 4 that I found particularly interesting. So without further ado, let me hand you over to X-Champ X to ask his first question.
Anyway, the first question is, why are you an atheist?
Why are you an atheist is a much more complicated question than it sounds. On a personal level, you know, I was 6 years old when I first said to my father, I don't think that God exists. My justification has changed, it's matured, it's become more complex in the intervening I fucking hope it has, in the intervening 35 years. So you could say that my reasoning as to why I'm an atheist now is different to what it was when I was 6. But if you ask me the question, why are you an atheist, I have to look back that far to try and look at the underpinnings of it. And then there's the way in which you address the question more generally, because the question of whether you're an atheist means, do you believe there's a sentient, intelligent, creative agent that is behind the creation of the universe that we see? But most people don't think of that question. They think more in terms of the kind of personal God, the gods of traditional Abrahamic religion. When somebody asks the question, do you believe in God? Do you think a God exists? Are you an atheist? That's what they think about. So you've got these different levels on which the question is framed. On all these questions and over this historical perspective that I've had in my life, perhaps the one common factor has just simply been that I don't see enough evidence to believe it, and I see sufficient grounds not to believe it. That's a very general answer, but it's a fucking general question, if you don't mind me saying so. Let's move on to question 2.
The second question would be, do you know much about the Christian God?
Well, yes, I know a lot about what Christians claim for their God. Do I know a lot about the Christian God? Years back I probably thought I knew quite a bit. The more I've learnt about it, the more I've researched it, the less I realise I know, and the less I realise that anybody knows. But more about that in my answer to question 3.
The third question I have would be, when you think of the Judeo-Christian God, what's the first thing that comes to mind, without you having to reflect and think? If you have the first thing that comes to mind, what do you think about the Christian God?
Damn, this is a really good question, and this is why I'm bothering with all of this, really. What is the first thing that comes to mind? And to answer a question like that, it's very easy not to answer that question and to get drawn and just to give the cleverest answer you can give, or to think about it and then follow that thinking on from there and then arrive at your answer when you've gone beyond that initial thought. And so I tried to think about what was my initial thought and then leave that question and then just address it again, and then sometime later address it again. And I have the benefit of first hearing this video over a month ago and then nearly making this video a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't have time, and now making it. And so coming at it with fresh eyes several times. But each time those first things are along the lines of contradiction, complexity, and impossibility. There are perhaps consistent gods. There may be philosophical problems with all of them, but consistent concepts of God within Judeo-Christian thinking. But overarching all of that, what you have it's almost as if the God of Adam to Noah is not the same as the God of Abraham, is not the same as the God of Moses, is not the same as the God of Jesus, is not the same as the modern philosophical conception of the omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, omnipresent deity that people like William Lane Craig would talk about. It's these things don't hang together in just the same way as, for example, the notions that that we're all kind of suspended, ready for some physical resurrection on earth following some day of judgment, doesn't hang together with the concept that when you die, your soul ascends up into heaven and an afterlife. They're totally different ideas, and one of them could be true, none of them could be true, but both of them can't be true. And it's the same with these different ideas of God. There are very, very different concepts of God throughout history of the Israelites, and the Jewish people, and then the Christians, and then more modern Christian thought, that just don't hang together. So when you ask me what's the first thing that comes to mind, it's just the impossibility and the incongruity of these different ideas and how they hang together. So this is why I said on the last question, do you know much about the Judeo-Christian God? Part of my answer was that, well, no, I don't. I know of these different ideas, but I'm left scratching my head as to which one we actually go with. And it seems that Christians never really make that decision. It depends what question you ask them as to which one they go with. Sure, apologists over the years have poured timeless resources into trying to hang these things together in some possible framework, but it really looks very, very shabby, and I don't think that it works. So that's my answer to that one. Question 4 is a cracking question as well. Let's move on to that.
And then question number 4. Question number 4 would be, what is God's character? Who is he? What is in his nature? Who do you think he is? He's good, evil, bad, whatever. Just who is God in his character?
Well, it's kind of a strange question, because when you ask me what is God's character like, if he exists, you're referring to your God, and by definition your God is omnibenevolent, so that he can't be evil in his character. But you're asking me to consider what his character is like, what he would be like as an entity, and how that would affect us, and that's really rather interesting, because when I look around at the things that happen, the suffering that goes on, and that everything that happens has to be compatible with his ideas that he is omnipotent, and that he is omnibenevolent, and that he is omnipresent, so that he knows that these things are happening, he could do something about them, and that when things happen, such as a few years ago I watched a documentary about an individual who was born without any skin, and this guy survived into his 20s without any skin. He had to be bandaged up freshly, creams applied and bandaged up freshly every day, and he was in agony every single day of his life. When you read of landslides that subsume entire communities under thousands of tons of soil and rock, or when you hear about tsunamis like the one in, was it 2005, that killed 200,000 people, children watching their parents swept away, parents watching their kids have their heads stoved away as buildings collapse on top of them under the weight of the water, etc. These things are all compatible with God knowing that they are happening, being able to do something about them, and him wanting and actioning the best possible outcome, the omnibenevolent outcome. So something has to be going along that allows all these things to come together, and that is usually claimed to be the bigger picture. So that's fine. We can go with that, and we can say, okay, so God, if he exists, he's good, and is this fantastic thing. But what are the consequences of this? This is the important thing, because people then talk about heaven, whether it's, as we said before, some kind of material or spiritual resurrection here on earth, or whether it's your soul ascending to heaven as another realm, whatever it is, when people look at what heaven must be like, they say, well, God must be he's omnibenevolent, he's all good, so heaven must be this marvellous place. But we already know that omnipotence, omnibenevolence and omnipresence don't necessarily lead to positive outcomes. And there's no way we could rule out the possibility that God torturing us in heaven and causing us to suffer, or just allowing us to starve in the corner or fester with some kind of cancers that never kill us but just cause us agony for all of eternity, that does not have to be inconsistent with these qualities that are claimed for God. So what I would say about the character of God, or what we know about the character of God in human terms, in the terms in which we could assess it and on the impact that that would have on us, is that we can say absolutely nothing whatsoever, really. Because whenever we talk about God's characteristics, it seems we're talking in these sort of ethereal, godly terms, which don't have any bearing on what those words mean to us on a normal day-to-day basis. I hope that answers your question 4. Briefly, let's have a look at question 5.
And then following question number 4 is question number 5 was, how did you come to these conclusions?
Okay, I say briefly let's touch on question 5, because I hope that I've already covered that in questions 3 and 4, and perhaps to a lesser extent question 2. So I hope that I've shown what leads to those conclusions, and I hope you're happy with that. I hope for anybody who's watched this video, it's perhaps given you some food for thought. It's given me some food for thought because the microphone sounds really crap. This is the microphone that I use. It's probably going to make a hell of a lot of noise now I try and move it. It's this shitty thing. I'm going to buy a new microphone. I'm going to spend 60 or 70 quid and get something decent, and maybe one of them round sort of pop filters, so that the microphone doesn't go pop whenever I make any kind of sibilant transient sound. Okay, right, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.